the provisions of the Republicans' tax package increase or, add to or pay down our national debt?
It undoubtedly added to our national debt.
Republican math here.
The uncapping of that pen lid is like the bat signal. I mean, you know something's about to go down.
Tell all your friends about me.
What are you? I'm Congresswoman Katie Porter. Republican math here. It added to our national debt. Let me show everybody how much. Wait, hang on. It's a two whiteboard situation.
Double whiteboard means double trouble for Republicans, as our favorite elected educator, Katie Porter, handed out another free lesson on GOP malpractice. During a hearing in which Republicans tried to blame older Americans for our growing national debt, which to be fair was a surprise to me as I thought it was Hunter Biden's fault. But of course, this is all a means to deflect from the true perpetrators of soaring national debt, the Republican Party, especially the MAGA era.
Debt ceiling by
itself. But the tax cuts, that was like $2 trillion.
Which Katie Porter does an exquisite job of outlining.
The provisions of the Republicans' tax package increase or, add to or pay down our national debt?
It undoubtedly added to our national debt.
Republican math here. It added to our national debt. Let me show everybody how much. Wait, hang on. It's a two whiteboard situation. Can you read that number for everybody?
That's 1.8 trillion.
1.8 trillion. Couldn't even fit it all on one whiteboard. So this is how much they added to the deficit, even as the premise of this hearing is that the deficit is a real problem and that Republicans believe it's a real problem. So if they didn't solve our deficits through the tax code, through that tax piece, they surely took action to fully pay for Social Security and Medicare so that we don't drive up the deficit that way. Dr. Harris, do you know how many Republicans co-sponsor the Social Security 2100 Act, which would make Social Security solvent for years to come?
I don't know. I'm guessing zero.
Zero. It's a really small number. Don't even need a whiteboard. Can do this one with my hand. So Republican math in terms of the budget, which is made by Congress, not made by seniors, by older Americans, means increasing our deficit by $1.8 trillion and doing zero to reduce the effect of the debt by Social Security and Medicare and adjusting those policies to be able to be better funded.
And the thing is, Republicans are well aware of their own role in this. I mean, when DeSantis is not desperately trying to keep his tongue trapped in his mouth while forcing a smile,
Governor Ron DeSantis.
he's blasting Trump over this very issue.
He should explain why he didn't have Mexico pay for the border wall. He should explain why he racked up so much debt. He should explain why he didn't drain the swamp. And he said Republicans were going to get tired of winning. Well, we saw last night, I'm sick of Republicans losing.
Republicans pay lip service to the national debt crisis while willfully overlooking the minor $1.8 trillion in tax breaks they gave to the 1%, all by repealing the estate tax while in power.
Bottom line is right now, Ali, what the Republicans are doing is holding the world's economy hostage. If they get away with it this time, not only will there be savage cuts for the needs of working people at a time when 60% of our people living paycheck to paycheck, this will be a precedent for years to come. Yep. That every 2 years, every year, they will hold the economy hostage. And that cannot be allowed to happen. So look, nobody is happy about the 14th Amendment as an alternative, but it beats where we're at right now. You got a Republican Party that says, you know what, we're really concerned about the national debt. That's why we want to give $1.8 trillion in tax breaks by repealing the estate tax to a handful of a billionaire families. The hypocrisy is outrageous. They want to extend Trump's tax breaks, which will be $3.5 trillion over a 10-year period. So for them, tax breaks for billionaires, cutting programs for children, cutting programs for housing, healthcare. We cannot allow that to happen.
And to those that like to blame every disaster during the MAGA years on the pandemic, Trump built a national debt so big before the pandemic that economists warned it would weigh down the economy for years to come.
That you cause inflation and then look back and say this was all caused by the Trump tax cuts of 2017. That doesn't make any sense. Biden wants to run his last campaign and the media shouldn't let him do it.
All right. So I'll go right to you, Jessica. I mean, didn't Joe Biden go on the biggest spending spree in American history?
No, Donald Trump actually spent a lot more than him. So Donald Trump is personally responsible as the president for about 30% of the national debt. And I believe Joe Biden's brought it down by $1.4 trillion since he's been in office.
When the COVID money went out.
What do you mean the deficit? But
just let me
this.
speak. I was asked a question. I answered it. Donald Trump is responsible for more of the national debt than Joe Biden is. Period. End of story. Those are what the numbers say.
Of course, the US needed massive deficit spending during the COVID-19 crisis to ward off an economic disaster that was almost unpreventable. But federal finances under Trump were dire even before the pandemic. The combination of his 2017 tax cut and the lack of any serious spending restraint helped both the deficit and the debt soar. So when the pandemic hit, the $3 trillion that was thrown into COVID-19 related stimulus meant there was no longer any margin for error.
Mr. Speaker, what is the Republican record? President Reagan comes into office and the first thing that he does is massive tax cuts for the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected, and explodes the deficit. President George W. Bush comes into office, 2001, 2003, massive tax cuts for the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected, 2 failed wars, a deep recession, explodes the deficit. President Trump comes into office, first thing he does in 2017, massive tax cuts for the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected, the GOP tax scam. 83% of the benefits going to the wealthiest 1% in America, explodes the deficits. How dare you lecture America about fiscal responsibility when the record shows that Democrats are the party of job creation and reducing deficits, and Republicans are the party of tax cuts for the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected, and exploding the deficit.
And yet Republicans still cling to that he's a great businessman strategy because he got given hundreds of millions of dollars to start companies and bankrupted many of them.
Wait, hang on. It's a 2 whiteboard situation. Can you read that number for everybody?
Hey Midas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.